John Iannarelli retired from the FBI after more than 20 years of service, during which time he was a member of the FBI SWAT team and participated in the investigations of the Oklahoma City bombing, the 9/11 attack, and Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords' shooting. Among his many FBI assignments, John previously served in Washington, D.C., as the FBI national spokesperson and later on the executive staff of the FBI's Cyber Division. He was a squad supervisor before becoming the assistant special agent in charge of the FBI's Phoenix Division, the number 2 position overseeing all criminal, cyber, and counterintelligence investigations throughout Arizona. During his FBI tenure, John was also the recipient of the FBI Director's Distinguished Service Award, for which he was selected from the ranks of the Bureau's 35,000 employees. A former San Diego police officer and a graduate of the University of San Diego School of Law and International Studies at Oxford, England, John is also an attorney, admitted practice of law in California, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. In addition, John is the recipient of an honorary doctorate of computer science in recognition of his contributions to the field of cyber investigations. This guy makes me feel like a slacker, to be honest. He has so many amazing accomplishments, and he's also an energetic and entertaining speaker. And he is the author of 4 books, including Why Teens Fail and What to Fix, A Parent's Guide to Protecting Their Children from Internet Predators and Other Dangers, Information Governance Security, about how businesses can protect their important information from loss or compromise, and How to Spot a Terrorist Before It's Too Late, a guide to help people recognize and prevent terrorism before it can occur. His soon-to-be-released 5th book, Disorderly Conduct, examines the lighter side of law enforcement and the humorous moments during John's FBI career. John is a frequent on-air contributor for the national news media, to include the Fox News Channel and CNN, and provided live on-scene coverage from Las Vegas of the Mandalay Bay shooting as it occurred. John is now a highly sought-after keynote speaker known for sharing his intriguing insights combined with his sense of humor. He has presented to numerous Fortune 500 companies, domestic and international audiences, the United Nations, and the Vatican, where he has personally met on several occasions with Pope Francis. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Okay, John, to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Well, first of all, I started off as a police officer years ago in San Diego, and I always had a desire to join the FBI. So back then, you had to be a lawyer or an accountant. So I went to law school nights, got my law degree, practiced for a while, and eventually got recruited into the FBI, where I spent about 21 years working as a special agent.
Wow. Well, being a lawyer and a special agent in the FBI, those are major accomplishments. So my hat's off to you. I really admire you because you obviously had goals and you persevered and you had tenacity and grit. And that's definitely what it takes to be successful in a career. So congratulations.
Well, thanks. Being cop, lawyer, FBI agent, I've gone from one hated profession to another.
Yeah, and I guess to some extent people don't like PR people either because they think that we lie, but we are always trying to actually be people that tell the truth. So I feel you on that one.
Well, just like law enforcement, they love us when they need us.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, if you had it to do all over again, John, what would you do differently?
Well, I will tell you. So early in my FBI career, I was approached about starting on a brand new cyber squad. And this is in the 90s. And while I was computer technical and I understood the technology and used quite a bit of it, I wanted to do the old fashioned work that existed in the FBI. I recognize now, looking back, how our world's changed and everything we do is cyber related. Frankly, most of the people I meet, most of my clients are going to be online through social networking and various social media outlets. So having missed those few years of the early growth of the use of the internet and cyber, I think was something that I would have done differently. Fortunately, we have all that technology now. So you, me, and all the people listening, we have the advantage of being able to network and meet people by leveraging that technology to our advantage.
Yeah, well, I find it really amazing because you and I connected virtually through social media. We think it might have been Twitter or LinkedIn, but in any case, that's why we're here together today.
And it's how I meet a lot of people in my business. It's also how a lot of people find me for to help them with what they need or make a referral to somebody that can assist them. Whereas this vast network of people that exists, but otherwise would not have been found, but for the fact that we're using social media. And if people aren't using social media and they're in business, they're making a mistake.
I would agree with that. I think a lot of people who are, of an older demographic, maybe not digital natives, somehow are afraid of social media or feel like it's a bad thing. So they just don't even bother with it. But I feel like you're probably missing out on a lot in life, both personally and professionally. I know that I derive a lot of pleasure just from seeing what my friends are doing and my family. And I enjoy sharing what I'm doing as well. So I think it's really important personally, but also for your brand or your organization. And so along those lines, can you give me an example of how PR and or social have helped you to advance your career personally or an organization that you've worked with, such as the FBI or a client?
So it's been very reciprocal in the way I use my social media. So I'm a regular on the national news as a law enforcement consultant on a variety of issues. And I use social media to make that known to persons. Hey, I'll be on such and such show tonight, the Fox News Channel, CNN, etc., so that people will be aware of it and tune in. Likewise, though, because of that extra following, as I have thousands of people on social media, the news networks recognize that when they bring me in, they're going to get additional followers that will tune into the news programming and also see the various advertisements from the people that are buying spots for the news. So it encourages the news to bring me back at the same time. So it's been very complementary to one another.
Well, I think it is really interesting to watch how broadcast media has started to engage their own audiences with social and how people can become newsmakers or connect with newsmakers or broadcasters. Yeah, so it is sort of a holistic cycle of communicating, and part of it is just putting yourself out there.
I remember back in the 90s, I met with the president of a local news station. Back then, I was doing some PR work for the FBI as their spokesperson. And I talked about, hey, I noticed you don't even have a website. You might want to start engaging things on internet. And he scoffed at that and thought it was a ridiculous waste of time. I think he may be running a bowling alley somewhere in the Midwest now because clearly he was not, for a news person, changing with the times and seeing how it works. Today, if you don't have a website, if you're not on social media, I would really question how progressive are you in business, because you're certainly not keeping up with as things are evolving and moving forward.
Well, I would agree absolutely. It's pretty much a necessity not only to have a website but also to be active on social media. And Some people say, well, how do I make the time? And it's just something that we have to do. Just like back in the old days, you had to make time to have someone answering the telephone. It's as vital to your business as having a receptionist was back in the day.
Let me make a suggestion on that too. So you're right about the time factor, and I literally don't have the time to sit down and craft every single thing in the minute. I have an assistant who works with me. Now, everything that goes out on my social media is approved by me, but my assistant will help me draft, will take the time to physically input it into the social media networks for me so that I don't have to be bothered with that. Very simple for my millennial assistant to be able to do that. Huge time saver, but very short dollars. And at the same time, it increases the number of people that are watching and listening to me on the news and on social media networks. So if you don't know how to do it, or you're not comfortable doing it, or you just don't have the time, there are people who will be happy to do it for you.
Well, that's interesting. I have interviewed a couple of my millennial employees and actually Gen Y employees, and they love learning the old techniques from me. So it always does go both ways. And I think those of us who have worked for a long time should be finding people that want to have mentors. And that's one of the things that gives me great pleasure, actually.
Me as well.
So, John, I know that PR, marketing, and certainly social media have changed drastically over the course of my career. Are you using techniques, and obviously you are, techniques that you were not using when you first started out?
Oh, gosh, literally every day. So, when you think about how are we doing things 20 years ago where it was direct mail, perhaps, or even cold calling. Now, in using PR and marketing, a lot of what I'm doing is specifically targeting certain groups based on what I do. So as a retired FBI agent, I go out and speak for a living now. I do consulting as well, but what I really like to do is try to train the masses by speaking at conferences and corporate settings, all about how to keep yourself safe. So I look to corporations and target my social media or any PR initiative I'm undertaking on what groups need that sort of help that I'm trying to provide. And the goal here is not just to make money for me, because my business model in retirement from the FBI is job number one is to keep people safe. Now, as a business person, job number 1A is to make a living. But number one, looking at who needs the help, taking my social media, instructing PR to let's go after these particular targets, make them aware of what the risks are they face and how I can help.
Well, speaking of keeping yourself safe, is one of the topics how to keep yourself safe on your social media? Is that something that you talk about?
Well, I certainly talk about cybersecurity, and not just for your business, but in other areas. And the reality is there are so many dangers in social media and other places. If you're going to turn your computer on, you are exposing yourself. That's the bottom line. But you can mitigate those threats, you can limit them, and you can be safe. So I go out and I talk about that as well, and trying to keep people aware of what the dangers are and how you can avoid those dangers. The crooks are going to be out there, but it's like you and I going for a walk in the woods and a bear comes along. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun you. And so if
you're going to leave me behind for the bear to eat.
Should have put on your running shoes. But if you're somebody out there and you're a little safer on your social media, your business, the way you're doing things on the internet, the crook is not going to bother with you. They're going to go on to that next person who is not being careful. So it's just a little bit of protection can keep you very safe.
So since we're on this topic, what is your top tip for our readers about what they can do to keep themselves safe on social media?
So on social media, while it's all about putting yourself out there, you have to be careful of what you put yourself out there. So, for example, if you go to any of my social media, you won't find my date of birth. A lot of people put out their date of birth. They want people to know when their birthday is, etc. Some social media requires it, and I just put January 1, 1900 or whatever year I want, because if you have my actual date of birth, it makes it much easier for you to get credit in my name. That's essentially all you need for a credit card application. I don't want anyone taking my name, filling out a credit card. I might find out about it a couple of months down the road after $10,000, $20,000 worth of charges I now have to dispute. Tip number one to keep yourself safe.
Oh, that's really interesting because so many people, put their birthday out there, and then everybody on Facebook and LinkedIn and every other social platform are wishing them a happy birthday. So that is a very good tip. I guess I should go back and take my birthday out of all my social platforms. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Because as you said, I mean, you don't want somebody to be stealing your identity and getting a credit card with your name on it, obviously.
That's right.
So, John, what have been some of the obstacles to success in your career and how have you overcome them?
So I think a lot of things that most people will find in business is, what service am I providing that's different from the other guy that's providing a particular service? You know, there's a lot of FBI agents out there. Whether or not you've ever met one before, the FBI employs about 12,000 agents, and those agents retire, go out into the careers, and are doing some of the same things that I'm doing. Likewise, there's a lot of people in the private sector that do what I do, having not been FBI agents. So what is it that makes me different? And that's the importance, is distinguishing yourself, setting yourself apart. So what I've done for my business is, number one, when I go out and speak, I try to be entertaining as well. I've got a healthy sense of humor and I use it freely while speaking. People don't really expect that from an FBI agent, let alone from a guy who's going to come in and talk about cybersecurity. I've been to a lot of cyber presentations where they're speaking Klingon instead of talking to the audience in plain English and letting them know what's going on. Likewise, I've had some great experiences in the FBI. I've also had some harrowing experiences. Like every agent, I was involved in the 9/11 investigation. I was on scene when Gabby Giffords was shot, doing the investigation there. I was at Las Vegas when the shooting at Mandalay Bay occurred. So when I talk to my audiences, I give them real life examples from the ground of where I was. And you're going to hear a lot of behind the scenes stories that you've never heard of before because they just didn't make the papers. That's what I bring that distinguishes me from some other speaker that you would bring in, who will give you a lot of knowledge, but he won't give you a good story. And really, a story is what people want to hear.
Oh, yes. From the beginning of time, we've all wanted stories, not only the beginning of human civilization, but even from the time we were babies ourselves. Our mothers told us stories. Our parents told us bedtime stories. So I think, yes, that it's great if you can differentiate yourself from every other retired FBI agent or retired police officer by having a story. And of course, I'm a big advocate for developing your personal brand. So differentiation and positioning yourself as an expert are the keys to that. So obviously that's something that you've done, and I congratulate you for that, John.
Thank you. With me, you get a unique story with a unique experience and a healthy sense of humor.
I love that because I share those traits as well, especially the sense of humor part. As a matter of fact, sometimes I start laughing during this podcast so hard that we have to turn off the recorder because I'm like laughing. So in any case, we're going to continue this conversation with John shortly. But I first wanted to share with PR Maven Nation some exciting news. We've created a PR Maven Nation podcast listener line, and listeners can now call in to 207-620-9075 to get in touch with me and ask me questions, share feedback or ideas. And if you let us know that it's okay to use the recording, we'll use the recording as part of the podcast. I'm looking forward to having this new feature on the PR Maven podcast. And we're going to take a quick break. But first, actually, it's also time for our giveaway of a copy of my book, PR Works, and a Things to Do pad. So go to prmaven.com/giveaway and sign up. You could be our next winner. And we're going to be back with John in just a moment. This podcast is all about growing your network in order to strengthen your brand. In my 30-plus year marketing and PR career, I have seen many organizations waste their precious time and money on marketing because they're trying to obtain success without any strategy to achieve their goals. So many organizations and companies suffer from what I call the shiny object syndrome, trying every new fad that comes down the pike. That's why I created the Marshall Plan 15 years ago. We have done over 100 of these plans for clients, helping them to get out of their day-to-day routine to identify their goals, solidify their brand story, focus in on their ideal customer avatar, analyze their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and create a realistic budget and measurement dashboard. We create the Marshall Plan collaboratively with our clients over the course of 3 months. We have a 65-step process to create a highly customized, actionable plan. And it's not like we come in and say, we are the consultants from away and we know everything. Instead, we come in and say, let's sit down at the table with your leadership team and we'll bring our expertise in what's working in PR and marketing. And our client team brings their knowledge of what's working in their organization. And together we come up with a really amazing plan. For many, it's been a transformative process. I have watched how teams have come together and their faces light up because they have such a sense of accomplishment and they're so excited about the future of their organization. We help our client figure out the best way to implement the plan, sometimes using people within their organization and sometimes with our help. We would love to chat with you about how you can expand your network and achieve your marketing goals with a Marshall Plan. Go to marshallpr.com/MarshallPlan to learn more about the process, or better yet, send me an email at nancy@prmaven.com and we'll set up a time to talk and get started. And now back to our conversation. Okay, welcome back, PR Maven Nation. And today we're talking with John Iannarelli, FBI agent, and I want to dive right back in with more questions. John, you've been telling me during our break about some of your speaking engagements. Tell me more about where you go and what you talk about and the multimedia content you're sharing.
I travel all over the world for speaking engagements, and most of which are done in the U.S., but I've been elsewhere. One of the most interesting speaking engagements that I've had the good fortune of doing multiple times is I've been invited to the Vatican to talk about cybersecurity, which allowed me, I had a personal meeting with Pope Francis on a couple of different occasions. And I think that's a great telling that if the Vatican is so worried and concerned about cybersecurity, perhaps we all should be. You would think everything the Vatican has is public. I mean, it's all printed in the Bible. But nevertheless, they have things that they're concerned with that they want to keep secure. They don't want rogue nations hacking in or somebody else. So if the Pope is going to take time out of his day to talk to little old me about cybersecurity, it probably would be a good thing for others to do as well. But in addition to not just cybersecurity, I go out and talk about the active shooter, having been involved in a number of major active shooting events during my professional career. I also talk about terrorism. I have a book I wrote on terrorism called How to Spot a Terrorist. And essentially, post 9/11, we all heard, if you see something, say something. I took the time to write about what you actually should be looking for that would be helpful to law enforcement. So those are my main topics that I'll go out and address to audiences.
Well, you know, it's as a mom and an employer and just a citizen, it's very sad that we have to be focusing on these kind of topics today, but it is a reality. And, it's a complex subject, and human beings are complex. But I'm glad that you're providing content that's really helping people, because, these are situations that nobody wants to be involved with, but it is a reality in today's society, obviously.
There's always been crime and there's always been offenses. They change over the years from what we've seen in the past to what we're seeing today. And perhaps 50 years from now, it'll be something different. But what I do is none of this is about scaring people or making people paranoid. It's about empowering. It's about making you aware of certain little things you can do to keep yourself safe, whereas the other person may not be aware of or might not know to do. So you could protect yourself, your family, and enjoy yourself out in the public, as opposed to being afraid to go out.
Yeah. Well, I'm eager to share links in our show notes at prmaven.com/podcast, because I know a lot of our listeners will be eager to hear and listen to or read your helpful hints. So,
well, I'm very easy to find. So website is FBI John. Twitter is at FBI John. So by all means, I have plenty of information. And what I do in engaging people with social media and the way that a conscious effort on my part for a following, when I put information out, it's not about, oh, look at me, here I am, I'm going to be here on this day. I encourage people to follow me on Twitter because every day I put out a tip on something you should know to keep yourself safe. And that way you can get that tip daily. And it's an extra thing you can put in your arsenal to keep yourself, your business, your family safe and secure.
Well, as I was sharing with you in our pre-interview chat, the whole premise of this podcast is about creating an online community and an in-person community, and to be building your network both ways. And obviously that's something that you've done, is you've developed content that you're sharing on a daily basis, but you're also doing a lot of in-person networking. Do you actually have any way that you're measuring your success in all of this marketing that you're engaged in?
Sure. Well, I think the first measure that most people in business would look at is, am I earning a living? I find that I'm actively engaged, that I have people regularly contacting me, wanting to retain my service, have me come in and speak. Usually they find me either through something that's online or referral from somebody else that I've engaged previously. And I spend more time than not on the road out there speaking. So I am getting that feedback. Likewise on social media, I get comments regularly and responses. It seems that my social media numbers continue to increase every day, arbitrarily based on, as I assume, word of mouth, or things get picked up and others want to follow and see what else is out there. So it's been positive feedback for me, but at the same time, more importantly, it's been an opportunity. Every time there's more feedback, there's more opportunity to keep people safe.
Well, thank goodness for that. I'm very appreciative that you're thinking about that and educating others on how to stay safe in these dangerous situations.
Well, my pleasure to do it.
John, most successful people have a network of fans and followers, either online or in person or both. How have you built your network of fans and followers? And has it been a conscious goal, or has it happened on its own?
Absolutely been a conscious goal. I encourage people to follow me. When I speak, I always take the time to mention up front and again at the end, hey, these are the places you can find me. So if I have an audience of 400 people and even a small percentage decides to follow, it helps in growing my social media network. But again, I offer them something. One of the mistakes I think people make with social media is that they just post stuff. Social media is about starting a conversation, and it doesn't even have to be a conversation that involves you. It could be conversation amongst other people who are also following and commenting. But you want to give people something useful that they talk about, as opposed to just another fact that they can't do anything with, or even give them a direct instruction. So whether I'm offering advice or saying, hey, watch me tonight on the Laura Ingraham show so that I can talk to you about what happened most recently with the FBI and have an understanding. that is a conscious decision in the way I approach it to continue to use social media.
And how has your network helped you to advance your career, John?
It's been wonderful. I've got some great followers on social media who have become disciples of going out and telling people the great work that I'm doing, or at least they think I'm doing. And they will go out and say, you got to hear this guy. He's very funny. He's very entertaining, but boy, is he informative. I was scared and laughing at the same time. By people speaking on my behalf, they've become advocates for my business. It's like having PR persons out there that you're not paying to try to promote what you're doing, all of which is a byproduct of that social media.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what you have out there are what I would call brand ambassadors, and you've done a great job of building your personal brand, and that's been by telling your unique story, which actually is very unique because of all the situations you've been involved with and all the people you've helped. So kudos to you on that.
And I've been very fortunate, to develop the brand FBI John. It's easy to remember. It's easy to find. And also, once you become familiar with it, it's synonymous with what you're going to get. You're going to get actual information that is tactical, functional, and entertaining all at the same time, as opposed to some other random brand out there like, well, it's training, but I don't know exactly how it is or what it's going to be. My brand is clear that what you see is what you're going to get.
Yeah, well, that's great. You've positioned yourself as an expert, a thought leader, an authority, and as you said, it's entertaining as well. So I really admire you, and I want to know, do you have any kind of inspirational resource, whether it's a book, a website, or an app that you use to help get your creative juices flowing?
What I think is important if you're in any field is you've got to stay current. A lot of times I've seen people who speak on a variety of subjects. I can listen to them speak and I'll come back 5 years later and they're still talking about the same thing. I make it a point to try to learn something new every single day. And I use technology to help me with that, to hunt down what is new. But I make it a point to read this stuff. And as I get it, I incorporate worthy pieces into my presentations, always updating. So, especially in the world of cyber, it changes so much. If I come out and speak to your company today, you're going to get what's happening today. A year from now, have me back, I'll probably be telling you a different story because the threats and the landscape changes.
Well, definitely being a lifelong learner and a lifelong student is essential in both your career and mine. And I feel that the internet has helped us so much because there is so much content. One thing that's difficult is actually sifting through the content and knowing what you should pay attention to and what's frivolous. But is there one newsletter or app that you look at the most often?
My suggestion to your listeners would be as simple as set a Google alert for whatever it is that interests you that you're doing. Create a Google alert, and every day you'll get an automatic email of every story out there that appeared with those words that you set in your alert. And so for me, I'm looking at cybersecurity, terrorism, active shooter. I will get these updates. I will scan the articles, and whatever is of particular interest, I'll take the time to read word for word. But that way, I don't miss anything. Every day, I'm seeing what's in the news, what's out there. And it's not just newspapers and television stations, magazine articles coming from various periodicals. It really helps me stay on the cutting edge.
That's a really good piece of advice. We use Google Alerts to track what's in the news with regard to our clients at Marshall Communications, as well as ourselves and my own name. But just to create a Google alert about the general topic that you're interested in is a very good suggestion. So for those of you who haven't used Google Alerts, it's google.com/alerts. And you just simply type in whatever topic you're interested in or even your own name. I would recommend that everybody actually type in your own name or your company name and Google will serve up those emails to you as often as you want. You can get one a day, or you can get it as it appears. So it is a really useful service, and it's free, actually, from the Google. And I always say the Google knows everything. So, yeah, for better or for worse, right, John?
That's right. It may be free, but you better believe Google's making money one way or another off of you.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but they're going to do it anyway, so you might as well take advantage of their service.
Right. And that's a topic that we actually could cover in maybe your second episode when we have you come back, because I would love to explore with you just how much information is available out there about each of us, and what you say about, your one big piece of advice, not letting your birth date be floating around out there in cyberspace, is very good advice.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So when I do my cyber presentation, I start off with using myself as a guinea pig by showing the audience through PowerPoint all the information I found out about myself. And I take them through, here's where I live, and these are my parents' names. And this is the information that enabled me to get into my Netflix account. So you can see the movies I've watched. There's a lot of info out there if you know how to find it. Cyber experts like myself know how to find it, but the criminals know how to find it as well. So you do have to be careful.
Exactly. Yeah. But I also would encourage people not to be so afraid that they don't engage at all. Because as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, if you don't engage online, you're missing out on a big part of your personal and professional life as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the reality is, you don't want to have agoraphobia for the computer. Just like you go outside your house every day, there's a potential for a car accident or anything else happening. The internet is great. There's that fractional percentage of people out there that are crooks on the internet. And that's why you lock your door when you leave your house. You turn on the alarm when you go to bed at night. The same thing with the internet. You want to have your software. You want to know you're not just going to let a random stranger into your house. Don't let a random stranger into your personal information online. Just be careful, but be active. It is the way of the world. It's how we engage with people in the 21st century. And if you're not involved in the internet, you're missing out, and the world's going to pass you by.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you, John. And do you have one piece of advice that you'd like to give to someone who's just starting out in their career?
I will tell you, you may think there's a lot of competition out there, and the true answer is you're right. But there's a lot of clientele out there. There is a lot of room in this industry. So don't worry about getting your slice of the pie. Worry about making it a bigger pie. There is work for everyone as long as you're providing something of quality that people want to have. So go after it.
That is very good advice. I would agree. And, a lot of success, I think, just comes from persistence and getting up every day and keeping on doing what you're doing, and having that tenacity and persistence and grit that it takes to be successful. So that's something that I have found after having had an agency now for almost 30 years. And I have to say that podcasting actually has opened up a whole new world for me. I just love these conversations that I can have with people like you. And you found me online, and I'm so glad you reached out, because I don't think I would have attended one of the conferences, to be honest, that you're speaking at. But I'm really enjoying this conversation. And as we talked about previously, I always feel like if you meet somebody online, you should try to meet them. So hopefully I can meet you in person someday.
Well, I'm a big fan of Maine. I vacationed in Ogunquit every summer for years. And so love to go back there every chance I get.
Well, we do handle the PR for the State of Maine Office of Tourism. So, yes, there are a lot of beautiful places in Maine, and Ogunquit is just one of them. So, John, do you have one parting thought you'd like to share with PR Maven Nation?
As I said, there's a lot of work out there. Engage. Don't be afraid to get out on social media. Don't be afraid to utilize and leverage PR. as you said, it's a mix. You want to get out there online. You want to meet people in public. And if you meet them one way, you should be doing it the other to follow up and vice versa. That way you have a nice advantage over the others in your clientele, your competition, who aren't making those sort of efforts. It's a little bit of time each and every day, but it pays off in the end much more than having not done it.
I agree, absolutely. And actually, for me, the kind of connections that I make energize me. So even though it might take a little time, I feel like it gives me more energy to go on and make more connections and grow my own network. So I'm grateful. I sometimes say that I believe social media was actually created just for me because it allows me to socialize. I'm a very social person, as you might suspect.
Well, that's a good thing.
So, John, my final question is to help PR Maven Nation connect with you. I know you've mentioned some of the ways already, but what are the best ways our listeners can get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, very easy to find, fbijohn.com, or follow me on Twitter at FBIJohn, and that's JOHN.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Thanks for your time today. I think what you offer is really helpful, and you do bring a lot to the table as far as the experiences that you've had. And I'm very eager for you to connect with one of my other most popular guests on this podcast, which is Detective Tim Cotton from the Bangor, Maine Police Department. And I mentioned him to you during our break. And I'm going to make sure that the two of you connect because I think in your law enforcement field, you'll have a lot of things in common to chat about. Plus, you both have very good senses of humor. So that's a good thing to bring to what is otherwise sometimes a pretty serious profession.
Well, I look forward to it. And thanks for having me on today. I appreciate the time.
That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.